Namaste, everyone. My name is Henry Gomez. Welcome to this beginner flow. You will need a block. If you don't have a block, it's all right. We'll start in all fours, tabletop position. Knees over hips, shoulders over wrist. Knees or hips width distance apart. And if it's too much on your knees to start with, the option is always to double up on your yoga mat to protect your knee joints. Pressing through your hands, and we'll begin with cat-cow. Inhale for cow. Brought it through your collarbones, stomach on the floor, just like cow udders. On an exhale, round through your spine like a cat, like a Halloween cat, pressing through your hands on the exhale. On an inhale for cow, tailbone lifts up. Exhale, flex your spine like a Halloween cat. You move at your own pace with the breath, which each inhale is a cow pose, each exhale is cat. We are warming up the spine with spinal flexions and extensions. Inhale, come back to center. Bring your hands forward a couple inches. Spiral your hands a little bit out so your index fingers are parallel with each other. On an inhale, curl your toes underneath and lift up your knees. And on an exhale, press your hips up and back for downward facing dog. Press through all 10 knuckle pads and finger pads. Spiral your shoulders outward. If it's too much on your shoulders and you feel pain, you have the option to bring your hands wider than shoulder width. If it's too much on your hamstrings, for beginners and you feel tightness, you can always bend your knees to start out with. For option 1. Option 2 is to bring your feet wider than hip widths and walk your feet in a couple of inches in for another modification on tight hamstrings. You always have options. Bicep creases toward the front edge of your mat, and we'll begin to walk our dog by bending one knee and the other. Noticing all the sensations you feel in your body with this asana. Which each inhale through the nose, exhale out through the mouth. And we'll start to walk up towards the front edge of our mat, taking as many steps as you want. We start to hinge forward at the hips for standing forward fold. Option, bring your hands to a block, or if it feels good, bring your hands to your shoulders for ragdoll. You can start to sway back and forth. Nod your head yes or no. Again, if it's too much on your hamstrings, option is to bend your knees as much as possible till it feels comfortable inside your body. Release your hands from your elbows and inhale, start to rise up one vertebrae at a time to standing mountain pose, Tadasana. You want to bring your feet hips width apart. So when we talk about hips width apart, you don't want your feet too close together. You want your feet about right here. This is hips width apart. Bring your your hands right here. You don't want them too far out. When we think of hips width apart, we're thinking right here on the outer side of the hips, but we want them right here where you can feel that bend, and that is a hips width apart. So standing hips width apart, you want to ground down through all four corners of your feet. By doing that, you can lift up your toes and try to ground down through the four corners of your feet, lifting up your toes and just pressing through each corner of the foot. Option to bring your hands by your sides. You just bring your shoulders away from your ears. And by grounding down through all four corners, it's called Pada Bandha, one of the 5 bandhas in yoga. Energy through all four corners, up through your quads, of a line of energy out through the top of your head. So stacking that head over heart, heart over pelvis. Hands are facing towards the front. An option to close your eyes and just notice your breath, chest out and proud. We're going to do a little shoulder exercise real quick, a little standing Tadasana movement. On the inhale, lift your right arm up. On the exhale, bring it across your body. On the inhale, lift your left arm up. On the exhale, bring it across your body. We're going to do 2 more rounds of those to open up the shoulders. Inhale, lift your right arm up. Exhale, cross your body and down. Inhale, lift your right arm up. On the exhale, bring it across your body and down. 1 more round. Inhale, right arm up. Exhale, right arm down across your body. Inhale, your left arm up. Exhale, across your body. Just doing that to open up the shoulders. Beautifully done, everyone. On an inhale, bring both arms up overhead. Stay here. It's like you're holding a big beach ball overhead. Your pinkies are slightly in and your thumbs are slightly out to open up your shoulders. Hugging your shoulder blades across your body. Just breathing here. On an exhale, you want to swan dive and hinge at the hips for standing forward fold. So hinging at the hips, slightly bending your knees. If your hands don't come towards the mat, option is to grab your blocks if you have them and bring them to your hands on the blocks. If you don't have blocks, you can always bring your hands on your shins or ankles, or even come back to that hand to opposite elbow. Ragdoll for Uttanasana, standing forward fold. And just breathe here, shoulders away from your ears. Option to bend one knee if it feels comfortable for you. On an inhale, halfway lift, Bring your hands to rest on your shins or your thighs, hugging your elbows in. A nice straight spine from the sacrum to the top of your head. We are like in a 7 pose, looking like 7. You can always bring your hands up to your thighs for a little bit more. Standing 7, if you want to call it that. Just have your spine nice, long, and straight. Just breathe here for a moment. On an exhale, hinge back at the hips and bring your hands onto the mat. Step back as many steps as you can to plank pose. You stay here for a breath. On an inhale, shift forward, exhale, lower all the way down to your belly. Untuck the toes. Press the tops of your feet onto the mat. Press the top of your thighs onto the mat. Hug your elbows in. Your hands are going to be resting on the rib cage, by the rib cage. So hug your elbows in, press into the tops of your feet and thighs. Inhale, start to lift up and bring your shoulders away from your ears, broaden through your collarbones for cobra. You don't want to crunch the back of your neck, or you don't want to bring your chin towards the chest. You want to have that nice neutral spine. Exhale, lower back down. Top of the head onto the mat. I'm going to go one more time for cobra pose. So ground down through the tops of your feet again, thighs. Hug your elbows in. Inhale, start to lift up, cobra, broaden through the collarbones. We're going to stay here for 3, 2, 1. Exhale, lower back down. Retuck the toes. Inhale, push up to plank. Shoulders stacking over wrist. Exhale, downward facing dog, hips up and back. So we're back in downward dog. Whatever down dog you took that felt comfortable on your first time, take it again. You do that modification 1 by bending the knees if your hamstrings are tight, or modification 2, bring your feet out wide and a couple of feet in. And if it's too much on your shoulders, again, hands wider than shoulder width apart. Always have options, because this is your practice. Get into walk the dog. Ground down through your left foot. Inhale, lift your right foot off the mat and make sure all 5 toes of your right foot are down. So in turn, your spine, your inner thigh up towards the sky, so your sun can see. So the sun can see. And make sure you ground down through the hips still, or your hips are still square. This is a tough asana, a strength building pose. Make sure you're pressing through evenly on each of the hands. Inspiring all 5 toes down. We stay for 3, 2, 1. On an exhale, bring your knee to your chest and plant your right foot between your hands. Bring your left foot 45 degrees, and we're going to rise up to warrior 1. Your front knee stacks over front ankle. Your back foot is 45 degrees inward. If it's too much on your lower back, you can take a shorter stance in warrior 1. And by taking a shorter shorter stance, it's easier to bring your hips square towards the top of your mat and easier on your lower back. Bring your palms together at your chest for warrior one. That's one option. To help square the hips, you can bring your right hand to your hips, to your right hand to your outer right hip. Bring your left hand down and bring it parallel towards the mat, and that would help square the hips by bringing your right hip back, your right thigh back, and your left hip forward to square the hips. Once you feel comfortable in your warrior one, bring your hands up overhead. Pinkies are spiraling inward toward each other, and just slightly out. Shoulders away from your ears. Keeping Pada Bandha and pressing through the knife edge of your back foot. Exhale, bring your arms behind your back. Options to interlace your fingertips. If it's too much on your shoulders, you can grab opposite elbow like we did in standing forward fold. If your fingers are interlaced, we'll start heading to humble warrior. Inhale, start to lift your chest up. Exhale, start to lower down for humble warrior. You can always stay here. Your body is parallel with the mat. If this feels like you reached your limit, stay here. If you want a little bit more, continue your exhale. Come all the way down to full humble warrior. Bring your shoulders away from your ears. Start to breathe here. Inhale, start to rise back up towards warrior one. Unlace your fingertips. Bring it up overhead. Give it one last reach. Exhale, plant your palms, and we'll meet back in just downward facing dog. So bring your right foot back to meet your left into your downward facing dog. Start to pedal out your knees. Inhale, lift your left leg up, all 5 toes pointing down. Your inner thighs trying to get some sun, pressing evenly through all 10 knuckle pads and finger pads and squaring out the hips. We're going to stay here for 3, 2, 1. On an exhale, plant your left foot between your hands. Bring your back foot 45 degrees inward. Inhale, start to rise up to warrior one. Front knee stacks over front ankle. Again, if you want a little bit closer to your foot, your back foot closer to your front foot to relieve some stress into your lower back, please do so. That will easier to help square the hips. Take your warrior one. Bring your palms together to the heart. Bring your left hand to your left hip. Bring your right hand down by your side, and on an inhale, lift your right arm up. That would help square the hips. On an inhale, bring your arms up overhead. Shoulders away from your ears. And just like in Tadasana, we're bringing our arms overhead like a big beach ball. Exhale, bring your arms behind your back. If you're going back to interlace your fingertips, opposite thumb on top, the one that feels a little funky. Or you can do your hands on each of your elbows if it's too much on your shoulders. Inhale, start to lift your chest. Exhale, start to hinge at your hips and lower down to humble warrior. Stay here parallel if it's comfortable in your body, or continue on the exhale to lower all the way down to full humble warrior. Shoulders away from your ears. Pressing through all four corners of your feet. Just breathe. Inhale, start to rise up. Back to warrior one. Unlace your fingertips. Arms up overhead. Inhale, one last reach. Exhale. Bring your palms down towards the mat and step back to downward facing dog. Last dog of the class. Start to pedal out your feet. Exhale, bring your knees towards the mat. If you need to fold up on your mat, please do so. We're going to bring your feet wide on the mat, setting up for child's pose. By sink your hips towards your heels. If it's uncomfortable, option is to bring a block and set it onto whatever level feels comfortable for you. And you can option to bring another block and double up on your block if needed. And just sit on to the block to ease the tension on your knees. And you can always have a blanket and put it behind your knees if you have a blanket. You can extend your hands out forward, or you can bring them to stack them on top of each other if you don't have a block for support for the head. You always have options in your practice. This is a nice resting pose. So if you continue your yoga practice, child's pose is a nice resting asana to gather the breath. If your breath starts to feel choppy, just always come back to your breath. Inhale, start to rise up to tabletop and start to come onto your sit bones. If you need help to lift up your hips, option to grab your block again. If you don't have a block, you get the books. Start to sit up onto your block to help bring your hips higher than your knees. So with your legs out long, we're going to inhale, lift our arms up overhead. On an exhale, start to hinge forward from the hips. You might just grab your shins. You might just grab your thighs, wherever feels that you reached your limit inside of your yoga practice. Again, if your hamstrings are tight, always bend your knees to protect your hamstrings. And some teachers could say, bring your squishy part of your sitting bones apart. But you don't want to do that, because what happens is once you bring your sitting bones apart, it's a micro stretch into your knees or in your hamstrings. So if you do those squishy part away from each other, you're already giving a micro stretch to your hamstrings. And once you hinge forward, which is a hamstring stretch, you might tear your hamstring or something bad could happen. So you always don't want to spread your squishy part, sitting bones apart. So you just want to hinge from the hips and grab whatever feels comfortable with your knees bent. As seated forward fold. And now start to rise up. Back to seated. Start to lower down all the way down to your back for Shavasana. Bring your legs out wide. Let your feet naturally go outward. Bring your arms wide. Take up as much space as you can, as much space as you want. Let your fingers naturally curl in. Let your body sink into the mat. For Shavasana. This is an important asana to help with nutrients of your practice. After a hard practice, this is a reward for you to rest, have nothing to do, nowhere to be, just laying on your mat in this resting pose. You stay in Shavasana for as long as you want. I'll start to leave you here. You can bring your palms together at your heart. or your third eye. Thank you for practicing with me. Hope to come practice with me on your mat again. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Have a great rest of your day or night. Stay safe. Take care.